Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
The store I was trying to work at was one of those old school family businesses that had been around since the early days of personal computers. Walking in for my interview, I could smell the dust on old CRT monitors and hear the whirring of ancient cooling fans. The owner interviewed me himself, a middle-aged guy with a thick mustache who seemed more interested in complaining about his previous employees than learning about my qualifications. My job was simple enough: deliver computers and parts to customers, then provide on-site tech support at their homes or offices, fix their problems, explain what went wrong, collect payment, and move on to the next client. I thought I'd be good at it, since I actually enjoyed solving technical problems and helping people understand their computers better. What I didn't realize was that my boss had serious trust issues. From day one, he made it clear he thought I was too slow. Didn't matter if I fixed someone's computer in 10 minutes or spent 2 hours untangling a complex network issue. According to him, I was always taking too long. He'd stand by the counter timing me when I loaded up my delivery bag, muttering about efficiency and wasted time. He would tell me I needed to move faster out there because time is money. When I explained that some problems just took longer to diagnose and fix properly, he'd dismiss my reasoning. He'd claim that's what they all said and remind me that his last guy could handle twice as many calls in a day. This became his favorite line. Every previous employee was faster, smarter, and more dedicated than whoever was currently working for him. I later found out from a friend who knew some of his former workers that he'd said the exact same thing about every single person who'd ever worked there. It was just his way of keeping people insecure and compliant. For months, I put up with his constant criticism. I tried everything, preparing my tools better, studying common problems in advance, even skipping lunch breaks to squeeze in more appointments. Nothing was ever good enough. He'd find some new complaint every week. Then came the day that changed everything. I walked into the store that Tuesday morning to find him in an especially foul mood. He'd gotten complaints from 2 customers about long wait times for service calls. Never mind that we were understaffed and I was already working 10-hour days. He told me he'd been thinking about my efficiency problem and clearly thought I was wasting time between appointments. When I insisted I really wasn't and went straight from one client to the next, he said that's what I claimed, but asked how he could know I wasn't stopping for coffee or just driving around town. I tried to explain that I was professional and took the job seriously, but he wasn't having it. He announced a new rule. From now on, I had to prove my dedication. Every time I arrived at a client's location, I had to message him. Every time I finished with a client, I had to message him and wait for his response before moving to the next appointment. I stared at him, hoping he was joking. When I asked if he really wanted me to wait for his permission between every single client, he confirmed that was exactly what he meant. He wanted me to use WhatsApp, text, or call him. If I didn't have phone credit, I was supposed to make a collect call. He wanted to know where I was and what I was doing at all times. When I suggested that this might actually slow things down more than help, he asked if I was questioning his management decisions. I quickly assured him I wasn't and would follow whatever rules he set. The first day under this new system was frustrating but manageable. I'd arrive somewhere, send a message, get his reply, do the work, send another message, wait for permission, then drive to the next location. It probably added 30 minutes to my day, but whatever. I needed the job. The second day started the same way. Morning appointments went smoothly. Message, reply, work, message, reply, drive. After lunch, I loaded up my bike with several deliveries and headed out for the afternoon route. My first stop was at an elderly woman's house. Her internet had been running slowly, and I suspected it was a simple router issue. I pulled up outside her small house and sent the required message telling him I'd arrived at the client on Maple Street and was about to start the diagnostic. He replied quickly, telling me to proceed. The problem was exactly what I'd expected. Her old router was overheating and needed to be replaced. I swapped it out with a newer model we'd brought, tested everything, and showed her how to restart it if she ever had issues again. The whole thing took maybe 25 minutes. I sent him a message explaining I'd finished at Maple Street, that the client's internet was working perfectly now, and I was ready for the next appointment. Then I waited. 5 minutes passed with no response. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. 10 more minutes went by. Still nothing. Following his explicit instructions, I couldn't move on to my next appointment without his permission, so I did exactly what any good employee would do. I sat down on the curb under a shady tree and waited. At first, I figured he was busy with another customer and would get back to me soon. I scrolled through my phone, caught up on some news, responded to a few personal messages. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. I tried calling again, still no answer. I sent another message explaining the situation. No response. By this point, I was genuinely concerned something might be wrong, but his instructions had been crystal clear. Wait for his reply before moving on, no matter what. So I waited and waited. I watched cars drive by, counted the number of different dog breeds, walking past with their owners, and even helped an old man who dropped his groceries. Nearly 3 hours passed while I sit on that curb, getting paid to do absolutely nothing. Finally, my phone rang. He asked where I was, and I told him I was still at the Maple Street client's house. He exploded, asking how I could still be there when she was my first appointment after lunch, and it was almost 5 o'clock. The day was practically over. I explained that I knew that and had been waiting there the whole time. He demanded to know what I was waiting for and told me to just come back to the store right away. I told him I was on my way. I packed up my tools and drove back, wondering how I was going to explain this situation. When I walked through the door, he was practically vibrating with anger. He started yelling, asking what was wrong with me and why I'd wasted the entire afternoon at one simple appointment. He said this was exactly the kind of inefficiency he'd been talking about. I looked him straight in the eye, keeping my voice calm and professional. I explained that I was following his rule exactly as he described it. He told me to message him when I finished with a client and wait for his reply before moving on to the next one. Since he didn't reply to my message, I waited. I told him I would never disobey a direct order from my supervisor. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. For maybe the first time since I'd known him, he was completely speechless. I continued explaining that I'd tried calling him several times and sent follow-up messages, but got no response. Since he was very specific that I should wait for his permission no matter what, that's exactly what I did. He tried to backpedal, saying I should have used common sense, and that obviously if he didn't answer, he was busy with something important. I pointed out that he didn't mention anything about common sense exceptions when he made the rule. He said to wait for his reply, so I waited. It turned out he'd spent the entire afternoon dealing with contractors, his house renovation project, and had completely forgotten about his new micromanagement system. While I was sitting under that tree, he was arguing with plumbers and electricians about tile choices and wiring problems. He tried to claim there had been a misunderstanding about how this was supposed to work, but I told him there was no misunderstanding on my end. I had followed his instructions perfectly. He tried to salvage some authority from the situation, but we both knew what had really happened. His ridiculous attempt to control every minute of my workday had backfired spectacularly, wasting far more time than any inefficiency he'd imagined I was guilty of. The new messaging rule disappeared immediately. From that day forward, he never again mentioned requiring his permission between appointments. I went back to managing my own schedule and route planning, just like before. Of course, he still complained that I took too long with clients. Some people never learn, but at least he learned not to create systems he couldn't actually manage himself. After that incident, I actually started enjoying the job more. Sure, he was still a difficult boss, but knowing that his bark was worse than his bite made everything more tolerable. I stayed another 8 months before finding something better. And every time he started getting demanding about productivity, I'd just smile and ask if he wanted me to start messaging him for permission again. He never took me up on that offer. I'm a 51-year-old mom dealing with menopause, and my 19-year-old daughter still lives at home while she goes to college. She's studying social media marketing, which should have been my First warning sign about what was coming. My daughter has always been obsessed with social media. Ever since she was in middle school, she's been constantly on her phone making videos, posting pictures, and trying to go viral. At first, my husband and I thought it was just a phase. We figured she'd grow out of it once she got to high school and had more serious things to focus on. But it only got worse. She started a YouTube channel when she was 16, then moved to Instagram, and now TikTok is her main platform. She has about 15,000 followers, which isn't huge, but she acts like she's some kind of celebrity. She's constantly looking for content, filming everything that happens in our house, and asking family members to be in her videos. My husband thinks it's great. He says she's entrepreneurial and that social media is the future. He even appears in her videos sometimes doing these cringy dad jokes that somehow get thousands of views. I've always been more private. I don't like having cameras in my face, and I definitely don't want strangers on the internet seeing me in vulnerable moments. The incident happened last Tuesday afternoon. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I felt that familiar feeling creeping up. Anyone who's been through menopause knows what I'm talking about. That sudden wave of heat that starts in your chest and spreads everywhere. I have been having these hot flashes for about 6 months now, and they were getting worse. I started fanning myself with a dish towel and pulled my hair up into a ponytail. My tank top was already sticking to my skin, and I could feel the sweat starting to bead on my forehead. I opened the freezer and stuck my head inside for a few seconds, which is something I'd started doing to get relief. That's when I noticed my daughter standing in the doorway with her phone pointed at me. The little red recording light was on. I asked her what she was doing. She said she was just filming and that this was perfect content because I looked so relatable. I told her to turn it off because I didn't want her filming me like this. She argued that I was having such an authentic moment and that other women going through menopause would totally connect with this. I repeated that I wanted her to turn it off. She reluctantly lowered her phone, but I could tell she wasn't happy about it. She had that look she gets when she thinks she is missing out on something big. Later that afternoon, she came to me while I was folding laundry in the living room. She had her laptop with her, and that excited expression she gets when she thinks she has a great idea. She told me she'd been thinking about that video from earlier. When I asked what about it, she said she really thought we should post it on TikTok. She explained that she'd been researching and menopause content was really trending right now. She said there were all these women sharing their experiences and it was helping so many people feel less alone. I told her absolutely not. She pushed back, asking me to think about all the women who would benefit from seeing this and how I could help people. I said I wasn't interested in sharing my personal struggles with strangers on the internet. She insisted it wasn't that personal since I kept my tank top on and nothing inappropriate was shown. I explained that wasn't the point and that I didn't want my hot flashes broadcast to her followers. She begged me to reconsider, saying she really thought this could be the video that helped her account grow because she'd been stuck at the same follower count for months. I told her that no meant no. She kept pushing for another 10 minutes, using every argument she could think of. She talked about helping other women, breaking stigmas around menopause, and how it would be empowering. But I could tell her real motivation was getting views and followers. When she realized I wasn't budging, she went to find her father. About an hour later, my husband came into the bedroom where I was reading. He told me that our daughter had shown him the video she took of me earlier. When I asked what his point was, he said he thought I should reconsider letting her post it. I asked if he was seriously taking her side too. He asked me to hear him out and said the video was actually really good, that I looked natural and relatable, and that it wasn't embarrassing at all. He added that, if anything, it was hot, and I could tell he was proud of his temperature pun, but I wasn't amused. I told him I didn't care how the video looked because I didn't want it posted online. He asked me to think about it from her perspective since she was trying to build something and this could really help her. I said it would be at my expense. He pointed out that it was just a hot flash, that it was natural and nothing to be ashamed of. I explained that I wasn't ashamed but that I wanted privacy. He said it wasn't like she filmed me in the shower or something, that I was fully clothed and looked fine. I repeated that my answer was still no. He tried for a few more minutes but eventually gave up. 20 minutes later, my daughter walked into the bedroom looking angry. She told me that Dad said he couldn't change my mind. I confirmed that was right. She accused me of being so mean to her. When I asked how I was being mean, she said I knew how hard she'd been working on her social media presence and that this video could change everything for her. I asked if my comfort and privacy meant nothing. She said it was just menopause and that every woman goes through it. I pointed out that didn't mean I wanted mine on display. She called me selfish and said I should think about all the women who could benefit from this. I asked her if she was calling me selfish when she wanted to profit off my medical condition without my consent. She insisted it wasn't like that. When I asked what it was like then, she said she was trying to create meaningful content that helps people. I told her if she wanted to help women with menopause, she could make a video about herself when she went through it in 30 years, and to leave me out of it. She said that wasn't fair because she needed content now. The entitlement in that statement floored me. She actually said she needed content, like my personal moments were there for her to harvest. I told her that since she seemed to think my privacy didn't matter, I was making it very clear that she needed to delete that video right now. She refused. I said she could delete it, or I would take her phone. She protested that she was an adult, and I couldn't do that. I reminded her that she was an adult living rent-free in my house and told her to delete the video. She said this was so unfair and that I was ruining everything. I repeated my demand to delete it now. She reluctantly pulled out her phone and showed me when she deleted the video, but she was complaining the whole time about how I was destroying her dreams and being unreasonable. The next morning I was checking my email when I got a notification that I've been tagged in a TikTok video. I clicked the link and there was my hot flash moment, posted on her account with the caption, "When your mom won't let you help normalize menopause." She had posted it anyway. I walked downstairs where she was eating breakfast and confronted her about posting the video. She said she had to because it was important content. I asked her about doing this after I explicitly told her not to. She said I was being dramatic about the whole thing. I told her to take it down immediately. She said it already had 500 views and 50 comments and showed me her phone telling me to look at how many women were thanking her for sharing this. The comments were mostly positive, with women talking about their own menopause experiences, but that wasn't the point. I told her I didn't care about the comments because she had violated my privacy and my trust. She said the internet loved it. I told her to take it down or she was moving out. She said I couldn't kick her out over a TikTok video. I told her to watch me. That got her attention. Her cocky attitude disappeared pretty quickly when she realized I was serious. She said fine, she'd take it down, but this was really going to hurt her engagement. I said good, and maybe she should think about that next time she wanted to exploit family members for content. She deleted the video, but the damage was done. I couldn't trust her anymore. Every interaction felt like potential content for her social media accounts. The final straw came later that week when I overheard her on the phone with her friend. She complained that I was being such a control freak about her TikTok and that I wouldn't let her post anything good. She said she needed to move out so she could create content freely. After her friend responded, she agreed and said it was just menopause, that I acted like she filmed me naked or something. That evening I sat down with my husband and told him I thought it was time for our daughter to find her own place. He asked if I didn't think that was a bit extreme. I explained that she secretly filmed me during a private moment, posted it online after I said no, and then complained to her friends about how unreasonable I was for wanting privacy in my own home. He said when I put it like that, he understood. I confirmed that I did see it that way. She was 19 and could get a job and an apartment like other adults. He asked what would happen if she couldn't afford it. I said she could get a roommate or move back in with us when she learned to respect boundaries. We gave her a month's notice. She threw a fit, called us the worst parents ever, and threatened to put our whole family drama on social media. I told her that would just prove our point about why she needed to leave. She moved in with her friend, whose parents apparently don't mind being turned into content. Last I heard, she was working part-time at a coffee shop and struggling to pay rent. That Tuesday started like any other. I had just finished a stressful day at work dealing with quarterly reports, and all I wanted was to grab some essentials and get home. I needed milk, bread, some frozen dinners, and maybe something sweet to reward myself for surviving another day of spreadsheets. I was walking down the cereal aisle minding my own business when I heard heavy footsteps behind me. I didn't think much of it until this woman's voice cut through the store noise. She yelled at me, saying she knew it was me. I turned around to see this woman walking toward me. She was probably in her 40s, had that haircut, you know the one, and was pushing a cart with what looked like a 7 or 8-year-old kid in it. The kid was already crying, which should have been my first warning sign. I apologized and asked if I knew her. She told me not to play dumb with her and accused me of being the one who hit her precious baby at the park last Friday. I stared at her, genuinely confused. I work late most days and spend my weekends doing laundry and catching up on sleep. The last time I was at a park was probably when I was 10 years old. I told her I thought she had me confused with someone else and that I wasn't at any park last Friday. She called me a liar and said she never forgets a face. She claimed I pushed her son off the swing and made him cry. Her kid was wailing even louder now, probably because his mom was making a scene. Other shoppers were starting to stare, and I could feel my face getting red from embarrassment. I tried to explain that I understood she was upset about what happened to her son, but I promised her it wasn't me. I told her I work until 7 most nights and don't even go to parks. She screamed at me to stop lying and said she saw me wearing a blue shirt just like the one I had on. I looked down at my navy work shirt. Half the men in this city probably own a similar shirt. This was getting ridiculous. I tried to reason with her, explaining that it was a very common shirt and lots of people have shirts like mine. I really thought she had the wrong person, but she wasn't listening anymore. Her face was getting redder and she was gripping her cart so tight her knuckles were white. She said she didn't care what I said and that I hurt her baby, so now I was going to pay. Before I could react, she lunged forward and kicked me right between the legs. The pain was instant and overwhelming. I doubled over, gasping, trying not to throw up right there in the cereal aisle. But she wasn't done. When I was bent over in pain, she grabbed the edge of the shelf next to us and pulled. The whole thing came crashing down on top of me. Boxes of cereal, cans, glass jars, everything. The weight knocked me to the ground, and something sharp hit my head. I felt warm liquid running down my face and realized I was bleeding. The noise was incredible. It sounded like the whole store was collapsing. Other customers were screaming, and I could hear the kid crying even louder. I tried to move, but there was too much weight on top of me, and my vision was getting blurry. The store manager came running when he heard the crash and demanded to know what happened. Through the pain, I could hear his voice. Karen told him that I had attacked her son and she was defending herself. Even in my current state, the nerve of this woman was unbelievable. She had just assaulted me and destroyed half an aisle, and she was still trying to play the victim. The manager told her he saw the whole thing on the security cameras. He said she had attacked me unprovoked and then destroyed store property. He said he was calling the police and an ambulance. Karen protested, saying no and that he didn't understand because I hurt her baby. The manager told her she needed to stay right there and not move. I could hear her trying to leave, her cartwheels squeaking as she pushed toward the exit. But the manager wasn't having it. He called for security to stop her. The next few minutes were a blur. The paramedics arrived and started pulling debris off me. They were asking me questions, but my head was pounding and I could barely focus. I remember being loaded onto a stretcher and seeing Karen in handcuffs by the front door, still screaming about how I was a child abuser. At the hospital, they ran all kinds of tests. I had a concussion, several cuts from broken glass, bruises all over my back and shoulders, and of course the pain from being kicked. The doctor said I was lucky nothing was broken and that the head injury wasn't more serious. The police came to take my statement while I was still in the emergency room. They told me the store's security footage clearly showed that I had done nothing to provoke the attack. Karen had literally assaulted a complete stranger based on mistaken identity. The officer asked me about Karen's claim that I attacked her child at a local park last Friday and if I could account for my whereabouts that day. I explained that I was at work until 8 that night, then went straight home. I offered to provide my work schedule and probably had receipts from ordering dinner that night. The officer said they would need those documents, but honestly, the security footage was pretty clear. He confirmed that this woman had attacked me without cause. They kept me overnight for observation because of the concussion. My boss was understanding when I called in sick the next day, especially after I explained what happened. The story even made the local news because of how bizarre it was. A few weeks later, I got a call from the prosecutor's office. Karen had been charged with assault, destruction of property, and making false accusations. The security footage, witness statements, and my work records proved that not only had she attacked the wrong person, but I had a solid alibi for when the original park incident supposedly happened. The prosecutor told me that Karen had a history of aggressive behavior and had been involved in similar incidents before. This wasn't her first time attacking strangers she thought had wronged her child. Karen ended up pleading guilty to avoid a longer sentence, but she still got 18 months in prison. The judge said her actions were dangerous and that she showed no remorse for nearly seriously injuring an innocent person. The grocery store covered all my medical bills and even gave me a gift card, though I'll admit I still feel nervous shopping there. Every time I hear footsteps behind me in an aisle, I tense up a little. For about 15 years now, I've been fixing tractors and farm equipment for pretty much everyone in this county. You get to know all the families and their business when you're the guy they call when their machinery breaks down. But it wasn't until last month that I finally heard the full story behind the most legendary revenge plot our town has ever seen. It all started when this old farmer hired a crew of migrant workers about 40 years ago to help with his harvest. These weren't just any workers. They were guys who'd been coming through our area for years. Good, honest people who always did quality work. The farmer knew this, which is exactly why what he did next was so messed up. When the crew finished 2 weeks of backbreaking work in his fields, harvest time came, and the farmer called them over to settle up. The crew leader stepped forward, expecting the agreed-upon payment. The farmer told the workers that he was only paying half of what they had discussed. When the crew leader protested and reminded him they had a deal, the farmer got nasty. He said they could take what he was offering or leave it completely. Then he threatened to call immigration on every single one of them if they didn't like his terms. The crew was stuck. They needed the money to feed their families, and they couldn't risk trouble with the authorities. They took the half payment and left town, but not before word spread about what had happened. Now here's where my backstory comes in. My uncle was the local feed store owner back then, and he'd always treated those workers fairly, often extending credit when times were tough. He told me years later how angry he was watching good people get screwed over, but there wasn't much anyone could do about it legally. What nobody knew at the time was that one of those workers had a cousin who lived in town permanently. This cousin worked as a hired hand for the neighboring farm and had watched the whole situation unfold. He was furious, but he was smart about his revenge. The next spring, the farmer planted his usual crops and everything seemed normal. Then the wildflowers started appearing. At first, it was just a few patches scattered around the fields. The farmer figured it was natural seeding from the wind. But by midsummer, his entire crop was being choked out by wildflowers. Sunflowers, black-eyed Susans, wild daisies, you name it. The field looked beautiful, but it was completely ruined for farming. The farmer kept asking everyone how all these weeds could possibly be appearing in his fields when he'd never had this problem before. He hired a crew to clear everything out. $25,000 later, the field was clean. He replanted for the fall season thinking his problems were over. 2 weeks later, more wildflowers sprouted up, then more. Every few weeks, a new batch would appear, costing him $2,000 to $5,000 each time to clear. He installed security cameras, hired guards, even stayed up nights trying to catch whoever was doing this to him. Nobody could figure out how it was happening. The flowers seemed to appear randomly across his hundreds of acres, always in different spots. The farmer was going crazy trying to solve the mystery. This went on for years. The farmer kept losing money, kept clearing fields, kept replanting. His debt piled up higher and higher. Finally, after losing over $500,000, he had to sell the land to cover his debts. The only buyer was his younger brother, who'd been living in Texas running a successful cattle ranch. The younger brother bought the land at a significant loss for the farmer, then immediately split it up and sold individual parcels to all the neighboring farms. He made a huge profit. But here's the part that makes this story even better. There was bad blood between these brothers that went way back. 40 years earlier, when their father owned the farm, the older brother had spread rumors that the younger brother had gotten some girl pregnant and abandoned her. Their father was so ashamed that he forced the younger brother to leave town. The younger brother became a traveling salesman and eventually built that successful cattle business in Texas. He'd been waiting decades for payback, and when his older brother's wildflower troubles gave him the perfect opportunity, he took it. Meanwhile, the older brother tried to start a handyman business in town, but the younger brother tracked down some of those original workers who'd been cheated and helped them start a competing business. They priced the older brother out of every job. Today, that farmer is in his 70s, still hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, living in a trailer outside town and working as a hired hand for other farmers. The same kind of work those migrants he cheated were doing 40 years ago. Last month, I was working on a crop duster for the neighboring farm when the pilot finally told me how the wildflower trick was done. He explained that it was the neighbor's son-in-law who'd been flying that crop duster all those years. The pilot told me that every time he was dusting their fields, he would make sure to fly over the farmer's property with a 50-pound bag of wildflower seeds and dump them all over his land. When I asked how nobody ever caught on, he explained that nobody questions a crop duster flying over farmland because it just looks like normal work. The reason he did it was that the farmer had been stealing hay from their family for years and had borrowed an expensive piece of farm equipment that he never returned. When the crew got cheated, the son-in-law saw his chance for some justice. That old farmer brought 40 years of misery on himself over a few $1,000s. He was too greedy to pay fairly. I'm 28 and 8 months pregnant with my first child, and this whole situation has me questioning if some people have any shame at all. When I was about 12 years old, I became completely obsessed with the name Eliana. I don't know what it was about it, but something just clicked when I first heard it. It's unique without being weird. It's feminine and strong at the same time, and it just felt like the perfect name for a future daughter. I talked about it constantly growing up. My friends would roll their eyes whenever I brought it up, and they'd joke about calling dibs on middle names when I eventually had my Eliana someday. My family knew about my obsession too. During family gatherings, my cousins would tease me about my future daughter Eliana and how I'd probably name every pet Eliana if I could. My cousin specifically, who's 29 and only about a year older than me, used to make fun of the name. She'd say it sounded too fancy or that I was being dramatic about a name. This is important to remember. I got married 3 years ago to an amazing guy who was totally on board with the name Eliana when we started trying for kids. When we found out we were having a girl 6 months ago, there wasn't even a discussion. It was always going to be Eliana Rose, and everyone in our families knew it. Here's where things get messy. About 4 months ago, my cousin announced she was pregnant too. It was a surprise pregnancy, and she seemed pretty stressed about it at first. She's not married, and the father situation is complicated, so our whole family has been trying to be extra supportive. When she found out she was having a girl 2 months ago, I was excited for her. I thought it would be fun to have cousins so close in age. The baby shower was supposed to be this sweet celebration. My mom and sister had put together this beautiful party with all my favorite people there. Everything was going perfectly until someone asked about the baby's name. I was glowing when I announced that we'd officially decided on Eliana Rose. That's when my cousin's face completely changed. She went pale, then red, then pale again. The whole room got quiet. My cousin suddenly told me that I couldn't use that name because she was using it. She said she had already told her mom and everyone at work about it. She acted like the name belonged to her now. I honestly thought she was joking at first. I left and looked around the room expecting everyone else to be in on some joke I was missing. I reminded her that I'd had this name picked out since before she even graduated high school, and that she had literally made fun of it in the past. She said it didn't matter what happened before. She claimed that, since she was the first to say it while we were both pregnant, the name was hers now. Here I am, 8 months pregnant, at my own baby shower, being told I can't use the name I've loved for over 15 years by someone who used to mock that exact same name. I asked if she was serious. I told her this was the name I'd wanted forever, and that everyone there knew that. She insisted that she wanted it now too and that she had called it first, during our pregnancies. She said that's how it worked. That's when my aunt, her mother, decided to jump in and make everything worse. She told me to just let my cousin have the name. She said I could always pick another name and that there were so many beautiful names out there. My own family was asking me to give up something I'd dreamed about for years just to accommodate my cousin's sudden whim. I told them no. I said I wasn't picking another name for the baby I'd waited years for just because she decided she wanted the same name she used to make fun of. My cousin argued that it didn't matter what happened before. She was due about 3 weeks before me, and she said that since she was having her baby first, she got first dibs. I told her that's not how names work. I explained that she doesn't get to claim a name just because she's due first, especially not a name she knows I've loved forever. The whole room was uncomfortable now. Some people were trying to change the subject, but my cousin wasn't letting it go. She said that if I used that name, I'd be copying her. She claimed everyone would know I stole it from her. That's when I'd had enough. I told her she could use the name too if she wanted, but I wasn't changing. I made it clear that if we both ended up with daughters named Ileana, that was her hill to die on, not mine. My aunt started going off about family harmony and how I was being stubborn, but my mom finally stepped in. She said the whole thing was ridiculous and reminded everyone that I'd loved this name since I was a child. She told them we all knew that and that we weren't doing this drama at my baby shower. My cousin stormed out and my aunt followed her. About half the guests left with them, which honestly hurt more than I expected. The rest of the shower was awkward, and I spent most of it trying not to cry. I found out later that my cousin had been telling people at work that I was trying to steal her baby name. She was playing the victim in this whole situation, making herself look like the innocent party who came up with a beautiful name only to have her mean cousin try to take it away. But karma has a funny way of working things out. My cousin gave birth 2 weeks ago, and guess what she named her daughter? Madison. Her boyfriend's family hated the name Eliana and pressured her into choosing something else. All that drama, all that family tension, all those accusations of name theft, and she didn't even end up using the name. When I heard, I actually laughed out loud. My husband found me sitting in the nursery, we'd painted pink, rubbing my belly and just giggling. He asked what was so funny and I told him she named her baby Madison. He asked if that was really what happened after all that drama, and I confirmed it was. So in 3 weeks when our daughter arrives, she'll be Eliana Rose, just like I've planned for 16 years. My cousin's daughter Madison will probably grow up hearing about the time her mom tried to steal a baby name at a baby shower and failed. Some people called me stubborn for not backing down, but I don't care. There are some things you just don't compromise on, and 16 years of dreaming about your future daughter's name is one of them. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.